Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp of the Limp, and we're back with what is actually going to be the final video of Fighters in the Pacific. Because as I was looking over things before we got started, I realized that there's no way I can win. I have actually zeroed myself in for a quick death. Let me zoom in and show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so basically on the previous turns, I had set up some stuff over here. I was flying out some more dive bombers, more fighters, but I realized I could launch the torpedoes here, right? Because they would be heading towards the carrier. They move quick because they're Japanese torpedoes. And then I could do something else with those Kates, try to get onto these torpedo bombers, the American ones that were coming in, and stay focused. But then I also had this dive bomber. Well, this one on this turn can easily slide over and then dive down and bomb and hit the rear. With him being able to do that, moving forward like that, there was no way. I couldn't get out of his bombing radius. This one valve left for the Japanese here. All right, so if he bombs there, that means the carrier can no longer move. And as you can see, these torpedoes are coming in. Two of them are lined up. One is right here. It's going to hit where the front would have been had I continued going. And then the other two. So let's see, was it one turn, two turns, three turns? Three turns. So basically by the end of this video, if I was playing it back and forth, these torpedoes would hit and this dive bomber would have already taken out the rear, so the carrier's just done. At most, I'd be able to launch two, maybe three planes. I would have to wait. Yeah, two more planes at best. I would be able to get off, but regardless, the carrier would be taken out. I'll tell you what, those Japanese torpedoes are just brutal. Being able to move two hexes the way that they can just make all the difference. The American torpedoes only going one. Now, see, that's accurate though, because in real life, World War II, the American torpedoes were just nowhere near as good as the Japanese torpedoes. So I don't mind them only being able to move one hex. And it makes sense. The Japanese planes are weaker. They have the flammable trait, so they're easier to take down. Some of them have less armor. Right, so there is the back and forth, right? So historically, the way that it's supposed to be, abstracted into the game, right? Going along with the rules, but I think they fit it well enough. So ultimately, that brings us down to like the thoughts of the game, right? Is this game worth getting? And I would say, yeah, actually, the cost is great. What is it? Something like $50? I think, I can't remember specifically what I paid for it. It's obviously going to vary depending on where you get it. But taxes, shipping costs, it's really not all that much. And you get a huge amount of stuff in there. There are 8 player boards, right? Map boards here. They're double-sided, even though they're C boards. So there's not a huge amount of difference in them. Some of them have islands. Some of them have clouds. It's going to be a little bit different like that. And let's back the camera out a little bit so you guys can see, but having all the boards there, it's relatively good size, right? This is about the standard war game map size, poster size that you would expect when you get them all put together. But there are some scenarios that are a little bit smaller if you don't want to have everything laid out across the board, and they go together puzzle-like, right? So don't have to worry about them sliding apart, coming apart while you're playing, right? It's like one big piece, as you guys can see, and it's 8 different boards. Really works well. As far as your aircraft go, you're going to have a couple of punch boards for each one of the different sides. They're going to have your extra admin type pieces, damage markers, bombs, torpedoes, all that good stuff. But a couple of punch boards about this size that's going to have a variety of different aircraft, couple of carriers, destroyers, stuff like that are on them. So you get plenty of game in the box is what I'm saying. There's more than enough aircraft, more than I think you'll use for any of the scenarios. Look at this. I have all the map pieces set out. We've got torpedoes streaming across the board, bombs, fighters going around, plenty of room, and still buckets of aircraft that I haven't even put onto the board yet. So more than enough in the box. And again, all that, we're talking, what, 50 some dollars roughly. So when it really comes to the price tag, I honestly expected it to be higher than it is. So they do jam a really good amount of stuff in here. The other player aids that come with it. And of course, since it is a 2-player game, you're going to have doubles of some of the stuff, like these pieces. There are extra ones in the box, so each player can have their own. And then the little extra rules here on the back, just so you have them in case you need them. When it comes to the scenarios, the ones that come in the rule booklet, there are 10 that come with it. I'm sure you can download more off of BGG. I played the 10th one here, the one that I was showing you guys, with the different carriers. Now it even has the spots here in the scenario, so you can determine which planes are in the hangar, the flight deck, the recon group, which again, the recon group I ignored since I played this solitaire rather than 2-player, but plenty of other scenarios for you to play if you do not like that one where you're having to deal with the carriers. You have plenty of scenarios where it's just the planes going at it, different types of planes, bombing runs, some where you're the attacker, some where you're the defender. You guys see some of these. Looks like some of these are already damaged aircraft, probably trying to make it back. Here, where you're making an attack run on the Japanese carrier, planes coming in. This is probably the entry zone for the American planes. Some zeros circling around. Here we've got the American task force, right? Their carriers, destroyers coming around, because these tokens are double-sided, right? So this side has the American destroyer, but backside has the Japanese destroyer. So you have extras of those if you do need them. Here's one that shows some of the land masses, which land masses can have those AA markers. Dropping the marker here, but the AA markers like this, signifying the fact that you can shoot around it. So changes the gameplay up a little bit more. And then you guys can actually see that's listed there. Different areas that need to be bombed. Huge fighter wing coming in. So as far as scenarios go, you got plenty. It's not like you can't make your own as well. And to reiterate again, I'm definitely excited for this. I know it got pushed back. I'm trying to contact them to see if I can get a little bit of extra information about this Fighters of the Europe, since we already did the Pacific. What is this? The Last Doge. Don't know that one. I'll have to take a look. But Fighters of the Pacific. That one is coming out very soon, I do believe. So stay tuned. I am going to try to cover that as well. So yeah, huge amount of stuff. Plenty of scenarios, plenty of player aids, plenty of planes, ships. You can even print your own ships. So you got a little 3D model here. This worked out really well. I was actually surprised how well this worked out, except for my handwritten 6 there. But the other one turned out pretty decent. Oh, crappy paint job there, but looks good on the board, I think, and I did all right with a free-handed red dot on the other one. Since I couldn't find a Japanese carrier, I just used the Essex version. One key thing is, does it work solitaire? And my ultimate thought is yes, kind of. It does work solitaire. Here's the thing, the way this game plays, right? It's not like other games of its ilk, games like X-Wing, where you're just getting the enemy in your fighting arc, right? So your arc of fire, you're going to get them in the arc of fire, and you roll your dice, and then that's it. That's what you're looking for. In this, it doesn't work that way. There's this whole chain reaction of dodge things, and I actually think that kind of helped and hurt the solitaire gameplay. And for me, it's because I was making basic mistakes. Like now when I'm looking at it after the fact, I'm like, wow, that was so stupid. I wouldn't do that if I was playing against someone else. But when you're playing at solitaire, you're kind of so focused in on one side and what you're doing with that side that when you start thinking about the other side, your brain kind of shuts off on that other thing, which kind of makes it hard when you're doing multiple aircraft that are zooming around. And like this example over here, let's zoom in, where I had a fighter that I tried to split S with to come in here and put some hurt on these valves, right? And ultimately did not do a good job with that. And he ended up getting shot instead of shooting someone else, right? It didn't work the way that I had originally anticipated. It can get kind of convoluted because there's so many different things going back and forth, and you can get a long chain going in this game, game, where this plane has its firing arc going after that plane, and then that plane dodges, but now that plane is firing over here, and now that one's dodging, and then this and this and this, and so you kind of have to do all of one thing, get all your dodges done, and then walk it back and see where the hits ultimately end up. Now, what I mean by that helping and hurting as far as the solitaire play goes is that it's kind of hard when you're doing this solo to really focus in on one thing and what you're doing and make that best decision. So I think there's that chance that you'll, if you're not really trying to be fair about it, make too good of a decision on one side where you're kind of hurting. And I, in this game, was so focused on trying to make sure that I didn't make bad decisions for the Japanese that I ultimately made very bad decisions for my stuff. It's just the fact that this one can get deeper, right? It's kind of hard to describe in it. And the fact that it doesn't have the dice, right? It's all about getting those planes in those firing arcs, right? Getting an enemy aircraft in there. And that is a lot harder than you would think. Even with 4 hexes right there in front of your fighter, you're like, oh, I'll just fly right there. Look, he's in front. But if your initiative is off and he hasn't moved, well, he just dodges, right? Or he dives down, or he does, whatever he does. And now you're not able to get that hit off like you thought you were. And it's way harder to keep those aircraft in front of the enemy than you would think. Now, playing through it, if I had it to do over again, I kind of think it would be better to do an activation back and forth rather than doing all of one side versus all of the other side. Because especially when you're doing initiative like this, in a game like this, if you have one side that has to go first and you have stuff like dodges involved with it, the side that has to move first is at a severe disadvantage. And it stays that way. It becomes a just massive, almost insurmountable disadvantage in the fact that everything that you're shooting at hasn't moved yet, so it gets a chance to dodge. But once you've moved all your aircraft, well, now all your aircraft have moved, so none of them get to dodge, and the enemy just has to line up their shots. And you notice, like, damage. I had 4 aircraft that had damage markers on them at the end of the game, whereas I took out, I think, 1 Japanese 0. They were just able to get hits across so much easier, and it's because I was having to move my aircraft first much more often than they were. So yeah, ultimately speaking, if I had this to do over again, I would change this and instead do a activation back and forth, right? So one side goes first, right? That the initiative can stay and stick with it just like the rules say. But then other than that, one side will activate an airplane group and then the other side will, and then back and forth, and go with it that way, even if you're playing in solitaire versus doing one side and then the other side. It's too much of a disadvantage in one direction. Now, if you find that you're playing this game solitaire and you're absolutely smoke checking the AI, well, maybe force yourself to move your aircraft first right? Give yourself that massive disadvantage. But in this one, I don't really think I would need that. I'm not that good. What can I say? My aircraft got torn up and my carrier got blown up. But all right, I'll stop yapping here. I will say, Fighters of the Pacific, it's fun. It's a blast. There's a massive amount of gameplay in the box, much more than you would anticipate. Significant amount of aircraft, and I don't see any reason why this wouldn't be combinable with the Fighters of Europe, right? They shouldn't be changing the rules to that extent, so there's no reason that if you have Fighters of the Pacific that you couldn't, play a little mix and match if you want to, unless they do some severe rule changes, which I really don't see them doing, because this one seemed to be a fairly decent success for them. So definitely check it out, Fighters of the Pacific by Don't Panic and Capsicum Games, and Fighters of Europe coming to Kickstarter soon. And like I said, just putting it out there again, nobody sent me anything. I got the game myself. They haven't even talked to me. They don't know who I am. So my opinion is my own. All right, that's going to be it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Y'all stay tuned. I do have the rest of that carrier action coming up with Carrier Battles Philippines by Compass Games, now that I'll finally be getting that to the table, since I had to do a little lighter carrier game so I can learn that carrier game. All right, that's going to be it for me. Y'all take care. I'll catch you in the next one.